Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader released back in 2023. It's now 2025, and in my opinion, the game is better than ever. And here to talk about the game with me today is my good friend Revan619. Revan, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Revan619. I am one of the community creators and in the Almates program, along with Jefficus. And yeah, I make content based around Rogue Trader, and I'm slowly getting ready to expand to Dark Heresy as we get alpha access in December.
Hell yeah, dude, and I am so excited for Dark Heresy. And for those of you guys who don't know, Revan is the absolute GOAT for this game. One of the ways that, actually the way that I discovered you, Revan, was I watched you do basically every boss solo on one of the most broken Psyker Blade Dancer builds that I've ever seen. I saw that pop up and I was like, there's no way. Like, no one is this good or knowledgeable in this game. There's absolutely no freaking way. But sure enough, you are. You are the GOAT.
Well, what's funny about that build is it actually got stronger after I had done that video, because that's when they had done the Four Sword patch. So whilst I had access to some of the Four Swords, obviously we didn't know where they all were, and then we discovered that there was a fourth dot that you could add to the build with the Warp Fire Swords.
Oh boy.
So testing it now, it's literally got an extra 25% on top of what it was doing.
That's fantastic. But for the people who have no idea what we're talking about, Revan, what even is Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader?
Well, Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader is a CRPG based on a tabletop dice rolling game, which I think predates a lot of the like Warhammer stuff. It was one of their first projects. And the tabletop's actually very hard to come by. I've actually been trying to get a physical copy of it since I started playing this game, and it's so hard to find. But to give an easy overview, is games like Baldur's Gate are based on the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop and their CRPGs that come from that, and Rogue Trader is the Warhammer 40k version of that.
Yep, that makes sense. That is the best way to explain it, in my opinion. It's basically Baldur's Gate 3, but with the Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader rule set, I guess I would say. And I personally, so my draw to the game, because I'm not a huge CRPG, tactical game, or strategy game kind of guy. If I'm going to play a strategy game, I'm going to do something more like RTS, maybe like Dawn of War or Total Warhammer. And so, because I want to be interactive with the game, I more so look to the narrative of Rogue Trader to get me engaged. And as an avid reader of 40k, I have gone out on a limb and have claimed that Rogue Trader basically has the best narrative. It's got the best story of any 40k game out there. And I would say that it's probably, if we were to rate this against the Warhammer 40k books themselves, it's definitely top 10 for me. It's up there. Would you say, because I know that you've played a couple of 40k games as well, Revan, would you say that this is probably the best story-driven game?
When it comes to actual story, I think, yeah, I have to agree. It's one of the best representation for the 40k universe that we currently have access to. Like, a lot of people will make arguments it might not be the best 40k game to play, which is all going to be down to personal preference and genre. But when it comes to actual story that pushes and represents the universe and the narratives that are at play, I can't think of a better representation that we really have right now.
Yeah, we've got a couple of big gameplay-driven games, for example, like Darktide, where it's all about first-person, 4-player co-op. Space Marine 2, which is a third-person, more action-y kind of game with some shooting, and then things such as, you know, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, Mechanicus, the slew of tactical games that you can argue are probably a bit more story-driven than some of those other experiences, but they don't really go too in-depth like Rogue Trader. For example, would you be able to explain to everyone like the difference between like a dogmatic playthrough, an iconoclast playthrough, or a heretical playthrough?
Yeah, so as a Rogue Trader, you're sort of exempt from a lot of Imperial laws and to within certain boundaries. Like, unless it's literally the Inquisition, most people, and even them, they can't really command you to do much. It's more about questions. Like, the High Lord of Terrors can he can give out new titles Rogue Trader, but then once it's done, he can't take it away or really control it. So
That's right.
because of that, you have a lot of power and consequence. Like, you can decide to destroy planets, and if you do that, that's it. That's everything within your domain is yours for right, and you can actually go out and claim more things. And with the narrative of this game, a dogmatic playthrough is very by the books, harsh Imperial, to the point where it's some of the decisions do just feel overly cruel. And as a metagamer, sometimes you'll actually skirt the lines between dogmatic and iconoclast, which is, so the dogmatic isn't exactly the bad tough guy, because a lot of people seem to think dogmatic is like the harsh but like morally grey sort of thing, when no, it's just strict to the Imperial faith and dogma. Iconoclast is directly against the Imperial faith and dogma, but it's not the good guy route that a lot of people think, because those who know your 40k lore, a lot of decisions that you'll make as Iconoclast is literally inviting extermination of humanity to Xenos. It's literally letting gene stealer cults go. It's letting heretics get away with summoning demons. It's kind of like the lawful stupid, but you think you're doing the right thing. Whereas heretic is the pure insanity. I reckon I can gain power from the chaos gods and not get, bent over before picking that option.
Yep.
But the game has a pretty good story. A lot of people think that the heretic path is weaker in Rogue Trader, but it actually has its own unique quest lines and its own unique cutscenes that actually has more content than the other two paths. But there is more they could do to make it feel more powerful and rewarding. So a lot of the impact of that you do see immediately in Worlds, but it isn't until you really get to the end side of the game where you find out just how good or how bad you did with the decisions you made.
Yeah, and whenever I say that Rogue Trader is the best story-driven 40k game, a lot of people immediately assume that I'm saying that the story itself of Rogue Trader is good, which I will say, yes, it is. But what I actually mean is how your choices as a player in the narrative directly influence gameplay and directly influence the encounters that you face. We're not going to spoil anything here because it's extremely important. The story itself is extremely important to the gameplay experience, but it's on a whole nother level that you don't experience in Mechanicus, in Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, or in any other 40k title that's out in the industry today. It's a whole different level. The only thing that might come close would be something like Dawn of War 2, Chaos Rising, using chaos-empowered items during your playthrough and becoming more and more corrupted as you play through that campaign. That would basically be the only equivalent.
Yeah, because whilst, given no spoilers, as you said, a lot of your decisions change the type of encounter you have, the enemies that you'll see, sort of what is available to you in boss encounters, or if you even have to fight certain enemies, and it can even change what the boss encounter is, though the end of the game is always going to work out the same. It depends if you go into it as an antagonist or with a rivalry or even as an ally with certain characters, and it sort of shapes the narrative. And the intrigue of it is discovering how you got to this position, why you got to position, and everything your predecessor was up to, and all the impacts on the universe that have been done because of the actions that started before the game and led you to where you are in the prologue.
Yeah, and I actually just brought up Dawn of War 2 Chaos Rising. For me, I rank the Dawn of War series very highly when it comes to 40k games, Revan, but I put Rogue Trader above nearly every other 40k game. Again, I am a huge lore nerd. I am all about a good story and narrative. And so for me, Rogue Trader is probably arguably the best 40k game, period. There aren't many major drawbacks like there are for some of the other 40k games. Like, for example, I love Darktide. I've got a ton of Darktide content on my channel, but one of the major drawbacks that I've experienced with Darktide is the limitations of having a microtransaction store in your game. I just absolutely hate it. I can't get over it. It's really hard for someone like me who has a background in kind of classic MMORPGs to see cosmetic items and really, really cool things get sold to players rather than having the players earn those things. For Space Marine 2, the game came out kind of with a half-baked release where there really wasn't much content in the game, and even though the game is shaping up to be significantly better nowadays, that negatively impacted my gameplay experience overall But with Rogue Trader, other than a couple of bugs on release, the game has been pretty phenomenal for me. I don't know, where would you rank it as a 40k game against the other 40k games?
Well, where it came to at release, soured a lot of people because it was very buggy, very messy, and there was a lot of half-finished content because Owlcat had actually been far too overambitious. They had promised a lot more than what they actually had the technical capabilities to deliver on. And you've seen that over the last sort of since it's come out of all these free updates they've been doing of them trying to relieve that technical debt that they left in the launch, finish half-finished things, expand it with DLC to breathe new life into it. So there's a lot of people who are saying that they're not even going to pick up the sequel, well, the spin-off sequel, because they said, well, you have to wait a year for it to be fixed. But I really think, based on the journey that they've been on, that they're going to learn a lot from that. And I think that's why they're doing the alpha more open and more for longer, so they can try to iron that stuff out. Because the state that the game is in now is phenomenal. Like, I'm very happy with the current state. Yes, difficulty I feel is too easy, but at the end of the day, I do understand that, as the developers even once said to me, they can't balance the game around someone like me who's put in 1,000 hours and finds the game too easy, compared to someone who's only going to be a one-and-done run, which is going to be the majority of players. So
Exactly.
they have actually nerfed the base game and both DLCs quite significantly to what they were in those early weeks. But we are hopefully going to be able to push for in the surveys, because they love their surveys, Owlcat. The last one they did had 35k responses. If people put enough down for, they would be happy to see a new mode that has a special, like, Rogue Trader version of Honor mode that you had in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
The developers might be willing to develop something like that. And even I'm personally, I know I don't speak for anyone, I won't claim to, I would be happy to pay a DLC to have a special Honor mode, or the brutal mode that the community manager once floated the idea of, where it is separately balanced. There is a limit to extra turns. The challenges are more mechanically engaging rather than number padded hard, because right now the difficulty differences are numbers get bigger. That doesn't make the game more challenging, it makes it more tedious, and it changes how you have to engage. I want it to be mechanically challenging. I want to have a variety of enemies that I need to overcome. I want to have to engage with boss mechanics, because right now I can brute force through anything with their builds. Like one encounter, if you don't engage with the mechanic, enemies have 80% damage reduction. Brute forced it, one turned it anyway. I didn't even need to work out what the mechanic was.
That's actually a really good point, Revan. I've had a very similar experience with Owlcat. They are very open, and they kind of listen to their audience and their players and the community in general. And I think that Dark Heresy is going to be better for it for sure. Let's pump the brakes though, and let's talk about the state of the game in 2025. The state of the game right now. You know, Void Shadows, Lex Imperialis, and patch 1.5. Where are we at? Because I recently started playing again. You were there as I streamed for the first time ever, just this game. And I've beaten it in the past on PlayStation, and the game already feels different. I'm playing as an Arbites. I picked the Castigator route, and I've got a couple of different abilities and everything that weren't in the game when I played it a long time ago. So what are some of the differences between release and where we're at right now?
Well, one thing that people who played before and who might be coming back, even before you get to DLCs, are going to notice is a lot of the mechanics that engaged with each other that weren't meant to, that created bugs that made everything broken. A lot of that has been fixed and ironed out. And there is still some outstanding issues, but they are working to resolve them. Like, there were silly things like burst and area were considered the same attack type, and they would stack their multipliers when they were never meant to. So you'd have basically the ideal combat scenario was 5 officers just shouting at Argenta to one-shot the entire battlefield. Whereas now that's all been limited. You can't play with that gameplay style, and you have to engage quite a bit more. And it changes the dynamics and the functionalities. There's been massive buffs to different weapon types that weren't useful before. There's been introduction of new base origin types, but new base origins, there's been a full origin rework for 4 of them besides Crime Lord and Noble, which 2 I would like to see touched on in the future. And there's been massive companion build changes. There's been massive overhauls done to less viable weapons, like stuff like plasma weapons now have more of an identity, arc rifles have more of an identity, shotguns got massively buffed. You'll feel the difference between using a las rifle on an Astra Militarum commander or using a bolter on a priest. They'll play very differently, the same as just a regular auto gun or a different weapon type would play on any other kind of soldier. And it's the same, like you mentioned, with the arbitrators. Using a shotgun on them feels really powerful. It feels really impactful because they have a lot of unique talents to that.
Yeah,
so
I was looking at some of those synergies.
Yes. And what is good now is all the origins that got added in later, such as Arbitrator, and the ones that got reworked, they're now more viable than one build type. Because at release, the origins were very obviously designed with one role and one archetype in mind, and it's why they didn't feel very good. Whereas now, you can play a Commissar as a pure buffer, or you can play him as a damage dealer that also has access to buffing. It's the same with an Astro Militarum Commander. You can be a pure officer buffer that really enhances the party, or you can do that less, but also get in the thick of things as a frontline commander. And it's the same for Navy officer. It's been drastically improved from what it was to what it is now, and there's a lot more identity, so you can really... There's a lot more build variety, and there's a lot more ways to engage with the game, access the game. And two players may have completely different playstyles. You'll have people that try to turbo turn one alpha strike, which is kind of stuff like I'll do, which is where you just stack extra turns and you wipe out enemies before they can interact. Because one of the still outstanding issues is definitely initiative. It's not normalized and it feels RNG, even when you do understand what it's determined by. Because it's meant to be an RNG roll plus half your agility plus half your perception, but characters with maximum agility and perception can still go dead last, and characters with no investment can still go first, and all the enemies in between. So there's a little bit more work to be done there. But Void Shadows drastically enhanced sort of the feeling of what it's like to be in the Warhammer, because the story was quite good, but it felt a little bit staggered and isolated. But now you have something going on inside your ship. A whole cult situation is going on with Gene Stealers, so that there's intrigue there. Lex Imperialis
I feel like Void Shadows, a lot of people did not really jump back into the game when that DLC launched, but it's kind of a shame because it gives you a very good idea of what life is like inside of a Rogue Trader's Void ship, and in a way that we've seen in certain depictions in specific books, but being able to play in that environment, especially outside of, like something like Space Hulk, where the ship, the Space Hulk itself is already abandoned, it's already been destroyed and just decimated by Gene Stealers and Tyranids. It's awesome to see how everybody lives in a Void ship, what people are doing, and pretty much how it's almost like I get Hive City vibes in our specific vessel because of how crappy it is for the majority of residents and crew members and all that. It's pretty phenomenal. But please continue.
Well, actually, that's a good point, because I was going to explain about how Lex Imperialis changed the feel of the universe, whereas Void Shadows changed the feel of the ship, as you said.
Yeah.
Because you see the difference between the officer decks, where most of the base game's set, and now the lower decks, which, it's not as good. And your choices, again, the 3 different alignment paths you can make, you can actually impact the lives of the people on the ship, and it changes the functionality.
Yeah.
And you actually visually see that change it. So, and there's a lot of decisions where it's not gradual and it's suddenly all at once, but it is good to see that they had that. And for the scope that they came in with, it does build potentially on a bigger budget on the next game, they'll do more. And it's the same with Lex Imperialis, because before the universe felt dead. It's just you, and the universe wasn't really doing its own thing. But even the first act of the game with DLC 2 completely changed. Now you have arbitrators that are fighting an uprising, and they're actually engaged. Rather than just dead streets and bodies everywhere, you actually see the arbitrators actively engaged in combat. You see other squads going around and how they're defending the planet. So it adds a lot more life and feel to the universe.
That is amazing. And I think that when we talk about all these things, we talk about the DLC, we also need to keep in mind that Alcat is not done with Rogue Trader. We've still got 2 more DLCs that are going to be coming out next year. One where we're going to be exploring the Trajan's Vault, correct? The Vault of the Infinite?
Yep. There are loads of people sort of speculating on what companion we're going to see and what new possible either origin or archetypes. But thing is, when you throw Trays and the Infinite in it, that could be literally anything.
It really could. Yeah.
You can't, I could make 1,000 guesses, they could still all be wrong. It could be anything.
Yeah, it could be any number of things from whether inside the vault or maybe just a random NPC that we encounter along the way. My vote is going to be, just because I want to keep it interesting, probably another Xenos. We'll at least get that with the Infinite Museum, I think is what it's called, or with DLC number 4.
The Processional of the Damned, which is about a void ship graveyard.
That sounds really dope. I hope we get like a kin. I'm hoping for a kin. We need a space dwarf in our party. That would be phenomenal.
See, a lot of people obviously want something like a crew, which that's what they're doing in Dark Heresy. But one of the things that they're going to be doing is they are going to be introducing new mechanical changes in DLC. I'm just quickly checking to see if it's going to be the Trazones one. Or, so one of the things they're changing with DLC 3 is they're adding an implant system, which is going to be able to change your strategic options in the battle, and obviously deep dive into the Necron conflicts is the sort of thing that's going on there.
Yeah.
So potentially they could even rework some of the companion origins like Pascal's Tech Priest, and possibly even give something similar to the player character. So loads of people do want a Tech Priest origin. But the question is, do we really think with Mechanicus 2 that they would give us like a heretic companion and go that route? Which could be something that could be done as a crossover event, because obviously they did the shovel thing with Darktide. But I feel like they're all doing their own thing. Like the fact that Darktide and Rogue Trader both released Arbiters at the same time, strictly coincidental. Alcat had no idea that Darktide was doing that.
Oh boy. I would say that you were asking for kind of like an honor mode for this game. Is it possible that with the with Trazyn's Vault, the Infinite Museum, that we would get something like a roguelike mode specifically for that area? It seems like there are a lot of possibilities there.
I would love that, but the thing is, because of previous DLCs, Alcat are very scared of adding a roguelike mode or even standalone content, because it didn't sell very well in their previous games. But I feel like as developers, they've misunderstood why they weren't popular. Whereas a completely standalone prequel story is irrelevant because you know that none of these characters are going to survive. Whereas a spin-off roguelike mode where you're just a random group that you create on the fly and you can experiment with different builds that you might not get and random items, and that you could then send items to the main game for future playthroughs, is something loads of people would be very happy and excited to do. Whereas their idea of like the Shivering Isles stuff that didn't go too well, or Shimmering Isles, so I might have just mixed up the Oblivion DLC, but with Wrath of the Righteous, where that went, they felt like it didn't do too well. So that they had said that they weren't looking to do a roguelike mode, but I think that they sort of misunderstood that standalone non-story related stuff might not sell, but a roguelike mode within, say, the final act of the game, that's just really hard mode challenge dungeons where you can get really cool, powerful gear. And maybe they could even enhance the final battles of the boss based on what your decisions are in these DLCs, and how many tombs you go into could awaken more enemies. That would be really popular. So I just hope that the developers don't get the wrong takeaway from the previous data that they had looked at regarding that.
Yeah, I suppose we'll see what they do. I personally am excited to dive into everything that Void Shadows, Lex Imperialis all bring to the table, and I'm excited to basically get my hands on a lot of the balance changes that were introduced in 1.5, because I am one of those players that will likely spend 200 hours in my one playthrough, because I'm just absorbing the game and going through the entire narrative, reading every single bit of like dialogue and all the information that I can find on everything. And then I will probably put the game down for another year before coming back for another wave of DLC. So I'm really glad that Alcat has basically breathed new life into the game, introduced much more replayability in the form of much more build variety, and I think that a lot of that love and attention and care shows with how many people are currently playing Rogue Trader. We're outside of a DLC launch cycle, we're in a patch launch cycle, and more people are playing Rogue Trader than pretty much nearly ever before. I'm going to flash the numbers up on screen for the viewers, but it's actually quite high. So I'm very impressed with the work that Alcat has done on Rogue Trader, and it's got me feeling very excited for Dark Heresy. And Revan, What is Dark Heresy?
Well, Dark Heresy is going to be a sequel, but a spin-off, so not a direct sequel. Dark Heresy is obviously going to be based in the Collector sector. I probably just butchered the name of that, and I'm sure you'll correct me when you come back. But you actually play as an inquisitorial agent, and it's going to be more of an espionage sort of style game that's going to be set around one world rather than the whole expanse, and something that they can build up a lot more because they're not having to do like one environment here, one environment there. So it's all very small, whereas they can make something much bigger and much more connected.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously there's going to be the threat of the Night Lords, the Tyrant Star, and for anyone that's rapidly Googling that, yes, do. You'll find out some very interesting stuff and some lore that they're pulling from there, as well as a lot of characters that are known within the franchise, whereas Rogue Trader didn't have too many names of people that you're like, oh, I know that character. Whereas you will spot some people like that in Dark Heresy just from the 2 trailers that they've had already.
Will we finally get our Gregor Eisenhorn cameo? We'll see. We will see if if Alcat is brave enough. But
it's more what they're allowed to do.
That's true.
Games Workshop.
that's true too. That's true too. We'll see what Daddy Games Workshop will let Alcat put into Dark Heresy. But what I'm looking forward to, and I know that we've talked about this before, Revan, is how much more gritty and grimdark the game looks compared to Rogue Trader. Rogue Trader is a very grimdark game, but I've always said that it's really hard to depict that whenever you're basically just working off of text. When you have a fully voice-acted game, when you've got talent who are basically adding emotion, or I guess injecting emotion to the entire narrative from start to finish, I feel like you could do a much better job of that portrayal. And I think that dealing with the Night Lords is going to create a lot of much needed tension in the narrative. I know that we obviously had the forces of chaos and the Necrons as primary antagonists in a Rogue Trader, but Space Marine games and games that have Chaos Space Marines featured very heavily as the antagonists just tend to sell better. See Space Marine 2, or the original Space Marine game, or any Dawn of War game where Chaos was introduced eventually. They all seem to do significantly better. So I'm looking forward to that in Dark Heresy. Is there anything you're looking forward to specifically? Maybe something more on like the mechanic side?
Well, there's a lot of things because, like you said, they're going to have better visuals, so they're going to be able to show a better story. They're going to have full voice acting, so the audio will deliver a better story. But more importantly, you're going to be in a different position because a Rogue Trader is essentially immune from consequence. You do what you want and no one can really stop you, and you don't really have to suffer it because how do you take down someone who owns a sector? Whereas, yes, the Inquisition is a very powerful force from the Imperium, but you're just an acolyte. So you're going to be answering someone else, you're not in charge, and there's going to be real consequence. Like, you could make decisions that gets you ambushed or all sorts of things. There's going to be repercussions to your actions, and you're not really going to know if you're picking the right choice. And the game's not really going to tell you if the person that you had executed was really guilty or not. It's because the Inquisition decides. Like, innocence proves nothing. Mechanically, there is a lot that is going to change. We don't know everything, but they have confirmed that the mechanical changes from Rogue Trader's Dark Heresy will be just as big, if not bigger, than the mechanical changes from Kingmaker to Wrath of the Righteous, and that updated and implemented a lot of systems.
That's exciting. I'm hyped for that. I didn't realize it was going to be that wide a jump, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I think, because a lot of people keep saying, do we think Dark Heresy will be their Baldur's Gate 3? I think they're aiming for it to be their Divinity Original Sin 2, the game before their Baldur's Gate 3. So they're trying to refine their system, simplify their system, because the thing that's scary about Alcat games is it's very complicated, especially because they started with Pathfinder. And when you look at it, some people look at 1,000 possible choices at a 55 level up system. They're like, nope. And they'll just, that's it. They're done, refunded. It's too much for them.
Yep.
Whereas this, they're lowering the level cap. They're getting rid of, you get a buff maybe once every second Tuesday if the moon's full and the Inquisitor winked at you. It's going to be very straightforward that this does this, that does that sort of thing. There's been speculation about possibly having paths within archetypes, but the only thing I've ever seen on that are unconfirmed like game article sources that were saying things like, say you're playing one of the companions is a Catachin warrior, and I'm looking at, well, how does he do melee and ranged guns? And one of these articles said something along the lines of that you'll actually have level paths within it and like a Diablo-style gem system to do that, but that's all vastly unconfirmed. Until the devs directly say it themselves, I'm not going to go on that, but absolutely. I am hopeful for what systems they put in, like even basic stuff for that. They've heavily hinted that Psyker's going to be an archetype this time around rather than a origin.
I'm all for that, because the Sanctioned Psyker origin is still way too powerful in Rogue Trader.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have been saying stuff like the Sanctioned Psyker, Blade Dance, Executioner got nerfed, but as you were seeing when I was just doing damage testing, I'm still able to hit enemies for 100k on turn 1.
Yeah, it is still insane, just absolutely absurd. Two things I'll say that I'm looking forward to for Dark Heresy is, one, this huge leap in mechanics is very, very exciting, but two, I'm really looking forward to being able to go down the Puritan, radical, or maybe even the heretical path. I feel like, as someone who's a fan of the Eisenhorn series, the Ravenor series, and the Bequin series, basically the entire Inquisitor or Inquisition Omnibus written by Dan Abnett, it is really exciting to be able to live out or play out those fantasies of being able to choose a Puritan, radical, or go straight heretic as an Inquisitor, and basically kind of, ask the question while you're playing the game, do the ends justify the means? And I am so freaking excited. I'm obviously going to do Puritan first because I'm not going to put my hands on Chaos, Relics, or Xenos technology. That ain't me. But somebody else might look at it and go, yeah, the ends do justify the means. We've got to use Chaos to fight Chaos. That's the choice that is made in the book.
This might be some exciting information for you because, as far as I'm aware, Aaron Dembski-Bowden is actually writing for this as well.
Really? Oh shit!
Like, if I do a quick Google, AI says that's true, but I don't know if I should trust that. But I do remember them saying that what one of the more known writers was involved, and I think it is Aaron Dembski-Bowden. And yes, the paths are going to be pretty much Puritan, your dogmatic, or radical, which it could very well be. That is probably going to be the heretical path, but depending on how far you push into it, I guess.
Yeah, radical in the books was more so like the iconoclastic path. Like you,
well, that is what leads us to heresy anyway, is it not?
That's true. Yeah, that is 100% true. It makes sense. But yes, Dark Heresy, I think it's going to be a banger. 100%. I think that the longer these games exist, Rogue Trader, Mechanicus, Dawn of War, the easier it is going to be for these sequels to be big successes, both with player count, financial successes, and with just basically like releasing games that are packed with content. I really hope that we don't see a situation like with Space Marine 2 or Dark Tide ever again, where the game kind of releases in kind of a bare bones state. I hope that's never going to be the case for any other 40k game. I hope that these developers, these studios have learned their lesson. It is big 2025, so probably not, but I've got to be optimistic about these things or I'll go crazy.
Oh no, I completely agree. Like, the amount of work they put into Rogue Trader, they have done so much goodwill farming. It is unbelievable because all of these updates, like patch 1.1, patch 1.2, patch 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, it's all been like free labor of love. And Owlcat do understand the issues with the game, because the one advantage that I've had with being much more engaged with them as a content creator, because a lot of their partner program were people that are generalist players. It was very few people that are only doing it for this, whereas I only exist to play this. I wanted to be the content creator that I wish the game had, so that's why I got more involved. And because of that, that's helped Owlcat with their transparency, because the more transparent they are, the more faith people can have in them. And when people say, oh, I've complained about this for a year, Owlcat don't care, I've spoken to them directly about those issues, and they're like, no, we're aware there's technical limitations, there's financial limitations, and we're still trying to work out the best solutions.
Yeah.
But they can't really put out like messages to me like, hi guys, we're working on it, don't worry, we're working on it. Whereas someone like me, I can go in there, it's like, no, they're aware. These are the discussions I've had, and I can sort of kind of hype them in a way, but I'm not under NDA. I can be very critical, and I can give them that extra like authentic leverage, where the fact is, if I go in and I'm like, dude, this is crap, I'm going to say that to my audience. Whereas at the same time, if I know something's good's coming, I'm going to be like, dude, chill, like they're baking it, it's coming,
they're cooking. Yeah, that is actually that's actually such a phenomenal position for this game's community to be in, Revan, because one of the games that I lost many years of my life to, Destiny 2, is basically in a position right now where every week they have what's called the This Week at Bungie, the TWAB. It's a community update from the developers, and recently it's been one big nothing burger. Like, I would rather the developers just kind of ignore communication with the community just so that they could really stick their nose down to the grindstone and get to work. Just fix the game, make it better. Because you could talk about delivering things every week, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to deliver on those things. Telling the players that you're listening does not equal like developers actually considering feedback from the community. It's not the same. You gotta show that you're listening by making the game better.
Yeah, and that's why I'm hopeful for. I really, and I know it's always going to get this comparison. It's not fair to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I really hope with the Dark Heresy Alpha, they take the same approach that Larian did with Baldur's Gate 3, where we don't just get dropped a preview alpha from alpha till beta, because they said that it will last, the alpha will last till the beta will last till launch. I hope that the alpha is going to see iterative updates, and we'll be able to keep experimenting with things as they change. Like, I think the worst case scenario is they just drop the alpha on December 16th, and that's all we have till the beta. Like, no updates, no improvements, and we're just essentially playing a tech demo. I think that won't have the response from the community that they're hoping for, because some people, if you have that out for 6 months, will think, well, that's kind of just going to be what the final game is. And then the beta could come out and it's an entirely different game, because the Rogue Trader Alpha compared to what Rogue Trader was at launch and now, entirely different experiences. So I do hope that they will be listening to feedback, even if they don't implement everything, but at least show iterative updates so we can see what's improving and let them experiment with things. Like, if they slap a label on, this feature might not go away, but for the next month, we want to test, see how this interacts. That would be fantastic to me. I would love to see stuff like that.
Well, I think that this time around, specifically for Dark Heresy, Revan, Owlcat has got a secret weapon, and that secret weapon is Revan 619. I think you are going to go in there, and you are going to be so critical on every single one of the bugs inside of the alpha that they are going to be able to detect everything before Dark Heresy releases. If Dark Heresy releases and there are still bugs in the game, it will be because they were simply trying to reach a deadline and they didn't have enough time to fix all the bugs that you found for them. So I think that they're going to be in a significantly better position.
Yeah, I think we should actually explain that, because a lot of your audience might not understand what we're talking about here. So it will involve a little bit of Revan lore. So I'm just some random guy that turned up, started making some build videos, and I was doing some fun things back in 1.2, almost a year after the game had been out. And then when DLC 1 launched, they did something called the Grim Darkness Challenge, which was kind of like a speedrun Iron Man mode. And I was like, hey guys, could I join? I've got like 200k views this month. They were like, okay. And they threw me in, and I just
come in here, little guy. Come in here.
Yeah, basically, because it was all like streamers and people that were invested. Whereas I just turned up as no one heard of. I did not have a route. I did not know how to speed run. I hadn't planned anything. All I knew was I knew how to make builds. And basically, against the speedrunners who had planned routes, they'd put in so much work, I actually felt a little bit bad, because they were taking sometimes 4 to 9 minutes for encounters that I was clearing in 30 seconds. Not because I had practiced and knew what I was doing, but because the builds I put together were that strong. Like, I remember I was congratulating the winner afterwards, because I came second by about 4 minutes, and I'm not going to make excuses, but I did watch all the bath streams, and I got the achievement live on stream of the bath seats, and then
amazing.
Still came second. But like, someone said like, oh well, I would use mare builds next time too, and I was like, these are my builds. These are entirely new things I invented that no one else would call meta. I was being told I was building wrong. But because of that, obviously I got more involved with the partner program. They let me have early access for DLC 2, and with DLC 2 I was given a lot of feedback for it, but there wasn't much that they could do with it, because it was the game was ready to go. It was too late. So when they were talking about 1.5, I went, hey, can I actually test this before it goes live so you can like fix stuff this time? And they went, okay, yeah, that could be fun. So what they did was they gave everyone in the partner program access to the 1.5 a month early and a feedback form where you can put in bugs and suggestions. And some people put in like 1 or 2 things. I submitted over 100 things. And
Holy
there was
moly, dude.
a lot of stuff got changed based on that. Some of it was updating it. So some of the origins actually got changed based on my feedback. A lot of bugs got fixed based on my feedback, and a lot of stuff, obviously. So people don't know, CRPG Bro was heavily involved with it, and he gave a lot of feedback as well.
Oh, that's
so
good.
I'm still hoping content's going to be coming from him, because I'm not in competition with other build creators. I just see it as multiple different people offering different ways to interact with and play the game. So for me, more community and more playstyles is better, because I'll learn stuff that I didn't know about. It was the same with him. He showed me stuff that I didn't know about, and I showed him stuff that he didn't know about, because we found out our different playstyles broke the game in very different ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, and they even got some people from the Russian community side involved, and I think it really helped. I think 1.5, the reason it was so successful is they got the Almates involved, and the thing is, they thought I was a nightmare when I was working with them internally behind the scenes and submitting like 100 bug reports and directly messaging their bug testers to the point they asked me to stop messaging them and speak directly to the community manager instead, because I was just sending them too much and distracting them too much. From the outside with a public alpha, I am going to be hammering them, because it's no longer, hi guys, I found this issue. It'd be nice if you could look at this, or here's a suggestion. I'm going to be on the outside. I'm just be like, yeah, this is terrible. I don't know why they did this. And I'm just going to throw out a video, like sort of thing. But I'm going to try and keep it as constructive as possible. But like, I want everyone to get their voices in, and I will try to funnel my community's feedback into that, and obviously what my own impressions are, because like, at the end of the day, I'm not under any contract with Owlcat, so it's all my opinions are going to be my own. And for me, the more successful the game is, the more successful I can be as a content creator. I'm going to want it to be a great launch, because at the end of the day, I'm not someone who wants to compete with, say, an Asmongold when he streams it. I want to be the guy that when Asmongold gets stuck on a boss, someone in his community recommends a video and he watches my one live on his stream. That's what I'm aiming for. So that's kind of why I want the game to be successful.
Well, man, I think that the results speak for themselves. I think 1.5 is phenomenal. I think it's probably the best patch that Rogue Trader has ever gotten. So I think that all of the people in the Almates program, or any of the basically content creators who ran QA for Owlcat for this, did a great job. And I think them opening up the alpha to the overall community is going to make Dark Heresy a significantly better game. I think it's going to be a much smoother launch than Rogue Trader, and I think that that's going to work for the game's benefit, since Rogue Trader itself did not have a smooth launch at all. We're going to be coming full circle, right? And kind of fixing the mistakes of the past. Now, Revan, is there anything you want to add or say to the audience before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, hold the game devs accountable. Like, and I don't mean like review bombing or being negativity. I mean, when they put out their surveys, really give your honest feedback. Say what you believe the issues are and how you can improve it. And the last surveys had 35k responses, as I said earlier. If people give good feedback, it will happen. And as long as, and I hope they do, is if Owlcat adapt a agile development mindset when it comes to doing this, and they do iterative updates, and they're reviewing feedback from the community at a good like monthly intervals, and they're putting that into the development cycle, I think Dark Heresy could be the game that puts them on the map as a studio, and it will set them up for their next big one. Because previously Owlcat even joked about possibly doing a Black Crusade after Dark Heresy, but that was because they accidentally leaked the game before it came out. So when they were doing their, like, they had a countdown going through to advertise the game. But if you check the save files, it was Dark Heresy _ promo _ and it's like, oh no, and then we all worked out Dark Heresy was coming before
hilarious.
the announcement. And as soon as we all worked it out, they started sneaking in other games. So they started putting in like Black Crusade into the title of it and stuff like that to try and throw people off. But there is potential that they could do that next. And I hope that they are setting themselves up for big success. And I hope that the people that say they won't play for a year will see other people playing it on launch and be like, actually, no, I can put my money in, I can invest into this early. And then Owlcat will have that extra bigger push to expand it with DLCs and have better updates. And that just because Dark Heresy is coming out, there's still another year of support plan minimum for Rogue Trader, these 2 more DLCs. So we're going to have sort of 2 good CRPGs in 2 different sends going at once. So yeah, for CRPG fans and Warhammer fans, we're going to be eating good.
I agree. We are going to be eating good with Dark Heresy, with Rogue Trader, and with pretty much every other 40k release that we're going to be getting in the near future. 2026 is going to be a massive year for Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. Guys, go over to Revan's channel and subscribe to him. You're going to need to, because Rogue Trader is a complex game. It is absolutely 100% worth getting into, but you might need a little bit of a guide to help you get along and survive in the game, and Revan is 100% your guy. He is my goat. Don't forget to subscribe to myself as well, like the video, and tell us what you think in the comments below. The Emperor protects.